Yo, what is good, everybody? Welcome into another episode of New York Mets Talk featuring my guy, WardyNYM. Welcome into the building. We got a lot to talk about. It's pretty upsetting that we got to wait all the way until Monday night to watch our New York Mets actually play baseball. We know what happened in the last couple of days. It's been one crazy roller coaster of emotions, that's for sure. Whether it's the Francisco Lindor going out to dinner with Steve Cohen. We think that it's done because of that. And then we see the offer on the table for Lindor, which is a 10-year, $325 million contract. And we're all super excited because there's no way he turns it down. And then he turns it down, and then he counters it. And then it's 2 days of scariness, at least for me, losing hope. We get all the reports saying like there is no movement towards an extension. And then it happens. Francisco Lindor signs a 10-year contract with the New York Mets for $341 million. We're going to get into our thoughts on that. And then all the vibes were so high going into opening day, and then the Nationals had to mess it up. So that's where the Mets
to talk about, dude.
Right? So we're going to get into a lot of things. Shout out to everybody joining in on the chat. So
what's up, Mets fans?
Today, man?
I'm doing great, dude. I mean, I shouldn't say great. I'm a little upset, obviously. But I will say I'm not going to let the opening series cancellation be too much, but I'll explain exactly why I'm upset for people that don't necessarily know outside of just being a Mets fan. But I'm still doing all right. I'm still excited. I feel like this is only builds the anticipation more. And, you can't be too upset when you have Lindor locked up for the next decade. So if you guys saw on my stream, I did that late night and Richie chimed in too, right on the eve of his birthday, turning into his birthday because it was his birthday this past year. So guys, give a belated happy birthday to Richie here.
Thank you.
We can't be all that upset at the end of the day. If there was no Lindor extension, then yeah, all hell breaks loose. But we can be a little content here.
Yeah, can you imagine that Lindor's extension didn't get signed, and then we had to wait, and this whole COVID situation with the Nationals still would have happened? Obviously, we still had to wait. Like, it would have been just negative vibes going into this season. It really would have been terrible. But this Lindor extension completely throws it out the door. And now we have great vibes. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Mets fans, we got to wait all the way till Monday night to watch our New York Mets open up against the Philadelphia Phillies. And it looks like we're going to have Jacob deGrom on the mound. And we're going up against a team that just beat the Atlanta Braves in extra innings yesterday. And they're going to have a full series under their belt. And we're not. We're going to be a little, hopefully not out of rhythm, because we know that this is going to, if it's going to, impact somebody the most, it's the pitchers, because they were preparing to go every 5 days, and this is going to throw everything out of the loop. So the first topic I want to talk about is the Mets opening series being postponed. So Wardy, what are your thoughts on this, and how do you think this is going to have an impact on the beginning stages of the New York Mets season?
Well, before I do that, I just want to say again, thank you all so much, everyone, for chiming in. I appreciate you all. Brennan, I appreciate the apologies. Buddy, he's a member on my channel. Love you, buddy. Yes, no problem about opening day. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, just to wrap it up again, I won opening day tickets a couple days ago on the night, literally 2 hours, an hour and a half prior to Lindor extending. So I was going nuts, getting excited. Never been to opening day before or anything like that. So I'm at the gas station yesterday, pumping up gas, getting ready to hit the highway and go, right? On my way to DC, and then I get all these notifications blowing up that the game gets postponed. I'm like, no way. So the COVID breakout, what's most frustrating to me personally is the fact that, why are the Nationals not able to play their B team, if you will, the team that they have at their alternate site? This is why you have a taxi squad, whether you're home or away. That's why they're doing that this year, again, because these things are inevitable. You're going to have guys test positive, whether they're actually sick or they're asymptomatic, or it's a faulty test. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen all year round to an extent. And for this to happen on opening day, especially it just sucks, because now the opening day for the Mets isn't even like it's this weekend. It's canceled entirely, right? So tomorrow's game is canceled. Sunday's game is canceled on Easter. A lot of people paid good money for those tickets, specifically for the whole opening day aspect. And now that's down the drain. So it will be rescheduled sometime, but it's not like they're going to drop the prices back to what they originally would have been if it wasn't opening day, right? So that's frustrating as it is. I'm excited for whenever they will reschedule it so I can go to at least one of those games. But Yeah, I mean, this is just a little bit of an uphill battle for the Mets, right? Everything looked like it was going right between Lindor getting extended. We'll talk about him plenty after we break down the current news here. But there was a lot of anticipation and hype last minute going into the game yesterday. So to not just see one game canceled, the opener, but the entire series, I'm honestly a little concerned just because now they're going into Philly, right? And you're going to have deGrom starting, so that'll be your opening day for the actual season. But it messes up the rotation a little bit. Now they're going to have longer days of rest. That helps some players. That doesn't help some other players. Who knows what the outcome is going to be of these games. You expect them to give their all. But whenever you have a scheduling change last minute, or now they're in D.C., they're probably flying out of D.C. as we speak. They're going to be heading to Philly early, I'm sure. It just throws everything off to get the year going. So it's a slow start, not the thing that we originally anticipated. So what's your initial stance on it, Richie? Let me hear it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a big disappointment. All you guys know, I appreciate all the belated birthday wishes. And I was excited for opening day to be on my birthday, seeing Jacob deGrom on the hill against Max Scherzer and Lindor, $300 million man coming at bat, playing shortstop for us for the first time in a game that counts. And, all the vibes are high. And it's unfortunate. Like I said, I think the biggest impact it's going to have on the pitching staff is Jacob deGrom going to be able to adapt? I think he will. But the other pitchers, the younger guys, the Petersons, like, are they going to be able to get back into that 5-day rotation and get into rhythm? That's the one thing that concerns me. Also, even this impacts the pitchers more than anybody, but the position players, they're not going to have real. They're coming off the spring. I mean, their last spring game was like 3 days ago, and then they were about to play. So now they're going to have even more time off. They're not going up against live competition. And now who knows if they're going to be seeing the ball well at the plate. There's no excuses for that. But still, it's going to throw off the Mets, and it's unfortunate that they had to go up against the one team in the entire MLB that has the COVID outbreak, and it has to screw over the Mets. It's not like we are the ones that have COVID. It's the Nationals screwing everything up. It's just disappointing. But listen, we're going to have an opening day eventually. We're going to be watching the Mets every single day all of a sudden for the next couple of months, and it's going to be really fun. So I don't want to harp too much on the Mets opening series being postponed because it's definitely a negative topic, and it's completely out of our control. It's out of the Mets' control. This is no one's fault. I think this is the best thing that we can talk about in terms of negativity. I'd rather it be this than something else, such as an injury or Lindor not signing. So
but let's also be grateful at least that it wasn't like that. This was postponed because a bunch of Mets tested positive.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing because we don't know exactly what Nationals got tested positive. It could very well be their top players. So they're going through it. We know. Again, it does suck. It would be nice if they would just forfeit the games when you have to do a whole series like this. Because it's like, when are you going to make up the games? You're going to have to pick your normal off days that will be crucial throughout the season, whether that's earlier in the year or whatever. They might have to spread out that series where they just fly out to DC for a game numerous times, So like, you're not going to have 3 days off like that usually. So I'm not sure. They're going to get creative, but that definitely sets things back slightly. But there are still plenty of positives to take away from this. And knowing that opening day is Monday, it builds the anticipation more. You guys don't know this. I did not announce this on the channel yet because it happened really over the past hour or so, but I am going to opening day for the Mets in Philly. I said, F it, I'm going to that game. So I will be seeing deGrom. That's going to be awesome. I cannot wait to do a vlog there. So I will not be streaming that day. I won't be streaming the majority of that first series because I'll be vlogging. I'll be at the opening game and I'll be at the series finale on Wednesday. So I'll be at both those games. I'll be making vlogs for both of them. So stay tuned. The vlog should come out the following day after doing that. But I'm still pumped for that. I'm like, you know what? If we can get opening day tickets last minute with deGrom on the mound without them being the crazy expensive price I know that they would have if the Phillies knew a couple months ago that, hey, the Mets opener is against us, I'll take that. So there are definitely some positives to take away from this still.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We're going to get Mets baseball eventually. So let's get into the Francisco Lindor signing the contract because this is something that is super exciting.
I'm still, granted, I know that I have my voice now, but I can scream and do it all over again. That's fine.
Let's do it.
It's amazing.
If you guys are new to the stream, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciate that. Also, if you guys want to subscribe to my guy, Tyler Wardy, that is down below in the description. If you're not subscribed to him, I'm assuming you guys already are, but just in case you're not, WardyNYM. Also, if you're new to Mets Media, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. I'll be posting
at those buttons, guys.
Mets content all throughout the season. So let's get right into it, man. Francisco Lindor signs a 10-year, $341 million extension. And before in the beginning of the stream, I gave you guys the whole week of emotions we went through, whether it's the dinner with Steve Cohen, the initial offer on the table. 20 minutes later, we hear that he countered it for 12 years, $385 million, and people were calling Lindor greedy. How can he not accept that? And then they meet in the middle for, it's technically an 11-year contract because he's going to be here for the next 11 years. But wow, what a huge contract for our guy, Francisco Lindor. We lock him up for the next decade. He is the new face of the Mets. And this is something that needed to happen because the PR hit that would have hit on Steve Cohen, it would have been, oh, same old Mets. The ownership's nothing's different. They can't close the deal. I thought Steve Cohen has a lot of money and doesn't even want to pay him more. And we overpaid for this guy. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, in baseball is the one sport where you can get away with overpaying players. And this is somebody you needed to get locked up long-term, especially giving up the assets we did in order to get him. If he left in free agency next year, it would have been a disaster. I know it's a big shortstop free agency market, but I don't care. I honestly rather have Lindor over any of those players. And people are like, oh, you could have got a guy like Trevor Story for cheaper. I don't want Trevor Story. Trevor Story is a great player. I think that he's one of the best shortstops in the league. But Francisco Lindor has way more to him. His presence on and off the field is unmatched. There's a reason why Pete Alonso was on a press conference saying,
exactly,
this man deserves $400 million. Like, he wasn't just saying that because he wanted to get his guy a lot of money. He meant that genuinely. He met Francisco Lindor only for a month and a half in spring training, and he understands the value of having a guy like Francisco Lindor in the clubhouse and making everybody better. He's a wizard on the field. He's mentoring J.D. Davis and Jeff McNeil defensively. He's helping people at bat. He's just a natural-born leader, and he is the face of the Mets for the next decade, and this is so exciting. So what's your initial reaction? I know that we were live when it first happened, but man, what kind of impact is this going to have on the New York Mets getting this deal done?
The impact's going to be truly indescribable. I don't even think we can really put it into words until we start seeing him on the field. You know, like, we watched him in spring. We watched him absolutely tear it like the final 2 weeks of spring. So exciting as it is. But now is the real test, right? Regular season begins Monday. And this club, you can tell that as soon as Francisco Lindor walked into this clubhouse, in this room, the vibe was different. He's rubbing off on players. He's making them 10 times better than what they originally were, either from a mentality standpoint or from a performance standpoint, or the case with a lot of players, both. Because normally when you're more mentally confident and the guys around you, and knowing that, yeah, I kind of have the best shortstop in baseball in my lineup, it's going to build your confidence, and it's going to ultimately help you both at the plate, in the field, whatever position you're playing, or if you're a pitcher, same thing. So I just think that Lindor is, in a lot of ways, and Draftneck Mark tweeted this a couple of days ago, and I think it's honestly a perfect description. Francisco Lindor is the Jose Reyes all of us Mets fans have always wanted. You know, Reyes was an absolute stud for the Mets, and we loved him during his time in Queens. But what you get with Francisco Lindor is another level than Reyes. For how long Reyes' prime was, and how strong defensively he was, and the off-field antics, all that. Like, Lindor is really, like, you can't even put into words. He is himself. There are no other player in the league like him. The play is going to definitely be there. We know this. He's going to be competing for an MVP candidate. He'll be dark horse this year for MVP. Maybe he's not even a dark horse. Maybe he's higher than that. And we just don't know it yet because we haven't actually seen him in the regular season. But what he's going to bring, the leadership qualities, is the best thing since David Wright. And I really don't think there's many guys that are close. Yes, you have Jacob deGrom, who's the face of this club, no doubt. But when you're looking at actual position players, you have Pete Alonso, who's definitely been most outspoken. But there's something about Francisco Lindor. You can tell that he just has that quality of being the next captain since David Wright, kind of right away. It felt that way since he first came to the club. The way that he's teaching guys like J.D. Davis, as we've said, and all these others. Now you have that security of knowing that he's going to be here for the next decade. How do you think this clubhouse feels? Like, he was saying it yesterday in his presser, I was getting all the thanks, already getting jokes from fellow teammates, like, regarding the contract and everything, but they're so pumped. Everyone was acting up on social media in a positive way, you know, knowing that as a current teammate, that you're having this guy along your side, as long as you are a Met yourself. That's the best feeling in the world. I don't know how it's not. He's the opposite of a clubhouse cancer. He isn't afraid to tell you how it is either. You know, if a guy's slumping, if a guy is clearly struggling, he's going to help you. But if you also F up and do something that was idiotic that you shouldn't, he's going to call you out. He's going to probably be the first guy to call you out, for that matter. That's what I love about Francisco Lindor in a nutshell, is you're getting so many of these different aspects of who he is as a person outside of who he is as an actual player. So him for the next decade, sign me up. In my mind, it really is a way of looking at most other sports, for example. It's like take a football, for example. It's like a receiver to an extent is only as good as their quarterback, right? When you look at hockey goaltending, your goaltender could be a star, but if you have a studded defense in front of you, it gets that much easier. Or if you're a forward in hockey and you have a great setup man, but without him, you really are kind of a shell of what you once were. That is what Lindor is now for the Mets and for these fellow players, especially the hitters. He's going to be helping them so much. Infield's going to help them so much. I think we're going to just see so many guys thrive far more than what they originally would have if Lindor was not with this club. So lock him up long term. I only expect great things to happen. And I don't think we are honestly ready for Francisco Lindor being the face of the Mets club just yet. I don't think it's really kicked in. As excited as we are, trust me, once we get like once we're like halfway through the year with them, we're going to have a damn good idea of, okay, yeah, this is insane. Like, he really took us. Like, think about how excited we were with Cespedes. And Cespedes' run in 2015 was immaculate, right? But it was short-lived. We didn't get that long-term with him by any stretch of the imagination. Imagine that similar impact, if not far greater, which it definitely will be with Lindor, not just for this year, but for the next decade. Like, what can you say about that, Richie? Honestly, like, it's hard to really kind of grasp your head around just the type of impact he's going to have in this club, because it's truly unprecedented from any other player that we've had within this organization.
Yeah, I know. And it's another, I think it's excellent for the short term and the long term. I think some people are overhyping the idea of like, oh yeah, we're going to be paying him $33 million when he's 35 years old and stuff. Like, don't worry about it. They have a plan. They have so much time to set themselves up for the future now, and they're going to build around him. And you never know what Lindor is going to be like. I mean, we can, what is that? When he's 35 years old, that's 7 years from now. He can adapt his game, and there's a DH in the NL. Maybe he doesn't have the defensive skills he once had because his athleticism, left him. But he's a solid DH. He's always going to have that veteran presence. He's always going to be the face of the team. He's going to be here forever. And he's the captain. He's the new guy that people are going to gravitate towards. He's a superstar. And what he did on the Cleveland Indians was spectacular, but I think that he has not even hit his maximum potential, as scary as it is. I think he's entering his prime. I think his young, highlights and all the crazy stuff you saw with the Cleveland Indians in the playoffs and all the crazy highlights defensively were excellent for Francisco Lindor. But I feel like the best is yet to come, and that's what's so refreshing. You saw what the Los Angeles Dodgers did. They went out and traded for Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is arguably the best player in baseball, one of them at least. And what they did is they gave him a 12-year crazy contract, $350 million, somewhere around that lines. And that was before Mookie Betts even played a game for the Dodgers. So the Mets need to do the same exact thing, and that's exactly what they did. The Mets are no longer the old Mets with the Wilpons. We're not.
Now look what happened now.
What?
Look what happened with Betts. I know it was a COVID year, but come on, you win it all your first year with the club.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Dodgers were set up beautifully, and I feel like Mookie Betts was the solving piece to that puzzle. You never know. Francisco Lindor, I feel like our shortstop position has been a hole. It's been a problem ever since Reyes left us. I feel like Ahmed Rosario, he showed promise, and I always was high on him. And I feel like, okay, he was getting better. He was more of an offensive-minded shortstop, and he was struggling in the field. And then we see Jimenez last year, and Mets fans are like, whoa, we have a young potential defensive stud, like a nice pesky player that we can build around, and we can, rotate in with Jimenez and Rosario. And then what did they do? They trade both of them for a superstar shortstop who was on and off the field he just fits so well with this team. And what I saw from him in his press conference yesterday, I watched the entire thing. It was just a genuine man who is humble, and he is so happy to be the face of the team. He was asked what he sees himself being when he's 38 years old. He said a bad MFer. And he's just like, he just has the very good mindset when it comes to being the face of the Mets. And that's exactly what this Mets team needed. We needed a position player in a position of need. I mean, you can say that the shortstop position was not something like a glaring hole going into the offseason, and no one really expected us to make a move because we had Jimenez and Rosario. But what they did is they got the superstar in Lindor to be the face of the team, and now our infield is stacked, I think, with Pete Alonso at first and McNeil at second. And I like J.D. Davis at third right now, and we'll see what he can do defensively. I like his offense, obviously, but we'll see what happens. But listen, this is just such a positive thing for the Mets because it sets us up forever. I mean, 30 years, 2032, that's when the contract's up. Think about that. That is ridiculous. I think it would have been a disaster if they let him walk out the door. And like I said, the vibes would not be there If we did not sign him to an extension and opening day happened, where all the Mets fans will be looking at Lindor in disappointment. I don't think any Mets fan will be looking at him with a smile on their face, just because we know that there's a very, very good chance that he's not here next year, and we can't attach ourselves and like look at him as a franchise guy. Throw all those fears out the window, because now every time Francisco Lindor is at the plate or he makes a wizard play at short, we can look at him and say, oh, that's our guy. That is our future. That is our now. And it's awesome because it's not like he's a young guy that needs to develop into something. He is in his prime, entering his prime even more. So you can't say enough things about it. What were your thoughts on what Lindor had to say in the press conference? Because obviously he got asked a lot, and he had a lot of good things to say. His first opening statements, he's like, here we go, baby. Like, he was just like, oh, man, I was watching that with a smile on my face, looking at him like, this is exactly what this Mets team needed, a star with this type of personality.
Exactly. And he's so humble though too. Like, if granted, it's not it isn't every day that you're able to throw a $341 million contract at a player and expect them to, treat it right, not get too over their head, right? Not maybe get a little too stupid rich because of exactly what they're working with right now. Not making sure that your ego doesn't get too far. That happens with a lot of athletes, not just in baseball and basketball, football, all the time, where they take a little too advantage of the money that they're actually making now. I don't see that all with Lindor. And again, only time will tell. But from his roots, how much his family still has an impact on him and will continue to be for the remainder of his life. I just love how he was brought into not just the field of sports, but just overall as a human being. I love his character. And I really believe that he's going to do this right. And he's not going to let the pay have a negative effect. He said that I have 341 million reasons to be out there and give it my all every single day. So, like, if he's had all the confidence enough, he's had a chip on his shoulder, and he's been pretty down the past year and a half now, because he knows that this has been a long time coming for almost 2 years, where it's like, I'm going to be dealt. When is it going to happen? Am I going to get what I feel I'm worth? He actually finally gets that in such an important fashion. And when you also look at the Steve Cohen side of things, like Steve Cohen, yeah, get rid of these damn stereotypes. All offseason, all it was with me on my channel was that, oh, Cohen, he's just a Wilpon 2.0. It's this and that. And look, I get it. Mets fans are always going to be reluctant to accept something until they really feel that something like record-breaking happens, even though plenty of big things happen in the offseason. But it's like, if you don't lock up Lindor, then that trade just goes down the dirt right away. It doesn't matter. Even if you win the World Series, okay. But not locking him up after that, that would drastically hurt you, because it'd be like, that was great for the short term, but you might never get a run like that again without him. So he takes him to dinner. He gives him that contract offer, and without deferrals, he took them out. Remember that. But then they had to negotiate again because Lindor wasn't sold on just yet. And then they put deferrals back in. So he'll be making money, $5 million per year, I think from 32 all the way to 41. So like the following decade, basically. Which I understand. It makes sense for both sides, but I just love that this regime is so confident, and there's no beating around the bush. They went all the way in on Trevor Bauer, and people still act like this club's cheap because they didn't land Bauer. They gave more actual money through that contract in the 3 years than what the Dodgers did. It was up to personal preference at that point, and he chose the Dodgers, right? Like the Mets did so much this offseason, and yet it needed to take this kind of deal to get it done to actually solidify Mets fans. So for any fans out there that are still not feeling as optimistic, that think that this isn't really the best possibility ever, I have a bridge to sell you. I don't know what else to say at this point. When you get Lindor locked up to this money, and I will say it's too, I don't know if you noticed this, but you know why he picked 341, right?
Yeah, it's 1 over Tatis.
1 over Tatis. That's funny as hell. It's a little petty too. Like, granted, his reason is probably like, look, going into the year, he feels he's the best shortstop in baseball. He sees a kid who hasn't even played one full year in the MLB yet, like full actual 162 season, and he gets thrown that contract 340 over a long period of time. Don't get me wrong, it's a great contract for him, but he's like, no, like he was probably determined to make sure that he at least got 1 mil over him, because I love that. I think that's more confidence. You want that confidence from him. And now you're getting it in tenfold. He's like, I'm the best shortstop in baseball. I deserve to be the highest paid shortstop in baseball. Now let my play do the talking. It's enough of this. That's in the past. Now we've never seen a Francisco Lindor with this kind of money behind his belt now. You think he's confident? Holy shit. He's skyrocketing through the roof right now. I really can only imagine what he's going to bring starting Monday.
Facts, man. And one thing I want to just touch up on before we get into another discussion, what are your thoughts on Michael Conforto's extension? And do you think it's going to be something they're going to talk about throughout the season, or do you think they're going to talk about it at the end of the season? And do you expect Conforto to be extended?
I thoroughly hope and expect Conforto to be extended as long as the Mets view him as the priority that he should be. That's the bottom line. He should absolutely be a priority to lock up long term. He's 100% the next guy that should be locked up over Stroman and Thor. And I love those guys too, don't get me wrong. But Conforto's he's deserving of being next man up. No question about it. Now, do I think it'll happen during the season? I don't. It doesn't seem like it will. He didn't really have a hard deadline, but given the fact that he is a Scott Boras client, that normally those types of things don't happen during the year. And also Betterment, the actual players union, it wouldn't be surprising to me whatsoever if he hits free agency and the Mets lock him up long term there. I just pray to God that if he does hit free agency, that he gives the Mets the benefit of the doubt, like they should. Like he loves them, as long as they don't completely lowball him. I fully expect it to get done, but I do think it'll carry out through the season. So it'll have a chip on his shoulder. I just hope for his sake that he doesn't get negatively impacted by the Lindor deal and that he understands that it's a business and that Lindor is basically the best in his position, arguably. So, give credit where credit's due. I don't think that there will be any bad blood there, but that's my only concern with Conforto is having that uncertainty should he go to free agency.
Yeah, and like you said, I hope that Conforto's agent doesn't see the Lindor contract and try to be like, yo, Steve Cohen, you got a lot of money and we think my client is best is yet to come. And, he's a 28-year-old. So what kind of contract would you want to give him? Would it be around 20 to 25 or is that too cheap? Do you think he's going to want to go 25 plus per year? What do you think realistically, putting yourself in the mindset of Conforto's camp, do you think that would get done?
I think realistically his eyes are set on 30 per year, but odds are he's going to probably loom around 25 if he gets lucky, 28. I think a very realistic contract for him is 7 years, 200 or less. If you can do less than 200, great. Most people would probably think that he's around 175 to 85 over that 7-year span, which totally makes sense. But yeah, I think Conforto, his eyes are probably set on that 30 range, and the Mets should hope that they can lock him up in that. If they can get him at 20, fantastic. But I think 25 at least a year, we could very well see that, yeah.
And I don't know, this is just coming to my head. I'm just curious what you think. So Fernando Tatis got that extension thrown at him so early. Say Pete Alonso has he breaks out this year, and we have control for him for a long time. So we don't have to worry about extensions with Pete. Do you think it would be smart to lock him up long-term now for a cheaper contract now, or wait 3 years down the line and then he's going to be on a contract here and then he's going to be asking for more money because he's that good?
It would be 100% smart. Yeah, it would. That's the best way to go about things. In today's game, like most sports, you want to lock up these guys basically as soon as you get them. Is there risk? Of course there is. You don't know if this guy's going to have an injury play career or hit his peak very early. That's a risk you're taking. But knowing that the potential upside that could be if you get them on, say, a contract where if they just hit free agency a couple years later, they would be making a couple $100 million more, that drastically changes the direction of your club. So, yeah, I do think the Mets are already thinking about that for sure. But I honestly think that a couple factors lay in, including the DH, getting that figured out, of course, and Dom Smith, really. I think Dom could be the main factor into why they don't commit to Pete sooner than maybe we would like, just because with this DH uncertainty, they need to figure out what is the best placement for those two as a nutshell. Pete's your starting first baseman. He will be the season for sure. But once a DH is or not in play, those will all be bigger factors. So I think the Dom Smith, the DH, that stuff needs to really get solidified and settled for them to kind of push forward on an Alonso extension. Yeah. But I really hope they do it. And also just remember that Alonso needs to agree to it at the end of the day too. He knows how the market works very well. He's advocating for Lindor big time, but he's also advocating for himself by doing that. He wants the game to continue trending upwards. He wants to be the highest paid first baseman in baseball when the time's right. So will he be willing to sacrifice that in the hopes of really staying with the Mets his entire career and having that security with this core group that it doesn't get broken up because they can afford it now? That'll be ultimately up to him at the end of the day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So let's get into another topic. We want to give us our lineup predictions because we're supposed to already know what our lineup is going to look like yesterday, but unfortunately we don't. So I'm going to start off with my projected lineup.
Sure.
I think we're going to have Brennan Nimmo leading off, Francisco Lindor in the 2-hole, Michael Conforto third, Pete Alonso fourth, Dom Smith fifth, Jeff McNeil sixth, JD Davis seventh, McCann eighth, and Jacob deGrom ninth. That's my prediction. It could be completely wrong, but what's your thoughts on that lineup, and what would you change?
Did you say McNeil at 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to roll with a lineup that they've been working with more often than not in spring. After like a couple weeks happen in spring, they really kind of figured out what they want. So I agree with you. I think that will exactly be the opening day lineup. And I do think that we will see throughout the year for sure plenty of changes. This is not including the Almora Juniors, the Pillars and stuff. Or we're just talking about these starters, but I do think that the biggest thing that we may see change is Lindor moving to the 3-hole. He'll be in leadoff at sometimes, I'm sure, too, because every player naturally has their struggles, and Nimmo will at some point, right? I expect Lindor to be in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd hole all throughout the season, just in different spots. Because normally the teams just get creative, especially if you're in a slump or something. So I think we'll see McNeil more in the top of the order than we will in the 6th spot, especially once he really starts hitting. You are putting a lot of lefties if you have Nimmo, McNeil, Lindor, Conforto, Alonso, deGrom. I mean, not deGrom, Dom Smith as like your first 5 or 6 there. But at the same time, it's just so loaded as it is. So I get why they have McNeil in 6th right now, because he didn't have a great spring. They want to kind of ease in. And, once he's fully on, then you're going to have as deadly of a bat as ever right in the middle of your order or so, going towards the latter half, which is going to help out the guys like the McCanns, the JD Davises, those for sure. You want to have your lineup as deep as possible. So those are moves I expect to change throughout the year. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that is in fact how the lineup is going to start on Monday.
Yeah, and I just want to watch it already. I'm so sick of it. This stream, guys, was supposed to be our thoughts of opening day yesterday. If Wardy wasn't going to the game, that was the initial plan, right? We were supposed to be talking about what happened with the game yesterday, but instead we're still giving you guys lineup predictions. How upsetting is that? But listen, I'm excited. I think that this lineup is going to be potent. I think our offense could be the best in a long time. They have that much potential. I also love the bench pieces. And I just feel like the top of the lineup, when it's a lefty, Brennan Nimmo, and then Lindor is a switch hitter, and then another lefty in Conforto, and then a righty in Pete, and then a lefty in Dom. I like that. It's not too lefty-centric, but there's definitely more lefty-handed batters, because then we have Jeff McNeil, but then JD. So, like you said, I think they're going to fluctuate. When McNeil gets hot, I'm expecting him to go up, but who's going to go down? Is it Conforto? Is it Nimmo goes down in the lineup because he's not doing good leading off, and they just lead off with Lindor, and then they have Conforto, and then they bring up Jeff McNeil to be 3 or even 2. There's so many things they can do, and they have so much flexibility as well with this lineup, and that's what makes this season so exciting, because this might be one of the best offensive lineups that we've seen, especially with the addition of Lindor. I feel like the shortstop position was the missing piece in terms of the offensive approach. Rosario, he had a good season once. He batted over like 300, I believe, and we all thought he can be great, but he always had those inconsistencies. He can never do it day in and day out. But now that we have a Francisco Lindor, who's a switch hitting stud at the top, I just can't wait. I'm expecting big things out of Pete Alonso, another great season from Dom Smith. So let's get right into our predictions on like stats.
Sure.
So who do we think is going to be leading the team in home runs? I think we all can.
Yeah, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, I think we can all guess. It's Pete Alonso, and all you guys in the chat, you guys answer along with us. We're gonna predict who's gonna lead the team in each statistical category. So I think Pete Alonso is the easy answer. So who's second behind Pete in home runs? That's a better question.
Good. That's a great question. Second behind Pete, I want to say it's one of Lindor or Conforto, and you can probably coin flip that one. Dom Smith is lingering too, though. He's like, don't forget about me. So,
yeah, Dom Smith can potentially, if he's like an everyday player, like, I don't know. He has that home run like power where he can just get hot and just nuke them. I mean, listen.
I think it's going to go as follows for your top 4 this season. It's going to be Alonso first, Lindor second, Conforto right behind him, and Dom. I think from after you get past Pete, I think that those next three will all kind of be neck and neck. I don't think that there will be a big gap between them, maybe just a handful. So those are like my picks, basically.
Do you think all three of those outside of Pete have a chance for 30-plus homers, or is that a stretch? Like Dom, Conforto, and Lindor?
They absolutely all have a chance, but I'm going to stay more on the conservative side and say that they don't all hit 30. If they do, awesome. Like, that's ridiculous. If your top four is hitting 30 at least, right? So I think Lindor contract year, now that he got the big bucks, I can see him gain maybe a little pull happy because he just wants to smash baseballs. When you look at Conforto, the home runs naturally come and he can spread the field. So I can see Conforto hitting 30. I think Conforto is going to be looming right around between, late 20s or early 30s. I think he has that potential to hit 33 would be a good pick for him. Then Dom is the biggest wild card because you're like, okay, how is he going to perform this year? How much is he going to be in the lineup? Because, they're going to be very creative with the outfield still. He'll be starting most days, but, things naturally happen, especially with him not being an outfielder playing left field. He might get a little banged up here and there. It might be a little sore for him. He might be out a couple games, just natural things because he's getting very accustomed to playing that position. I think Dom is on the outside of looking in on for sure hitting 30, but he absolutely has the potential to hit it.
Facts. I agree. So RBI, who's going to lead the team in RBI?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's tough. It's between those top two for sure, but I feel like you almost have to go with, Lindor makes so much sense, but I honestly think you got to pick Pete because if you're basing it off of his rookie year, I mean, the home runs, right? You can't tell me they're all going to be solos. Like there's going to be guys on base, probably more than ever for him in his career, might I add. So take that into account. RBIs are naturally going to come. I think Pete's going to lead the team in RBIs with at least 100. Very similar order again. I think with home runs, you're going to see RBIs. So I think it's going to be Alonso. Then I think Lindor will be second on the team in RBIs. And then third is where things get a little tricky. Really all depends on their placement and their utilization. But I could see at third spot, it would be, I really want to favor Conforto again, honestly. But it's really hard to go against the home run. Like my top four, I kind of feel the same way about, the other ones. But don't forget, Jeff McNeil, he lingers. It's so fun knowing that Jeff McNeil is a damn good player, but we're like kind of pushing him aside right now because he just had a slow spring. Brandon Nimmo can definitely get the runs in, but I don't expect Nimmo to get more than 50. I think 50 would be a great year for him too, might I add. So I think most Nimmo gets 50, but yeah, that's my top four, really. What about yours? Do you have any differences?
Yeah, I agree. I think Pete will probably naturally have the most RBI because he has the most home runs every year, and I think he's destined to have a better season than his rookie year. I don't know how crazy that sounds, but I think it's coming. And I think that's naturally going to come with Pete. I think Lindor is going to be right behind him with the RBIs. So the batting average, this is a good question because Pete's not the answer. Is it Jeff McNeil? Because that's probably the best batting average hitter we have on the team in the past couple of years. Is he going to have one of those seasons? Is Lindor going to start breaking out? Because Lindor's never been a super high average. Last year, he struggled at the plate, to be honest, in terms of batting average. But he's a career like 275, 280 range. That's what I expect Lindor to have. Is it Conforto? We saw him in a limited season last year bat over 300. So who would you guess to have the highest batting average in this season?
I'm sticking with what's worked, and that's McNeil. Until he proves me otherwise, I have to give him, the upper hand there for sure. He should be at least saying 300. If he's saying below 300, then odds are he's continuing to be pull happy. So yeah, I'm definitely picking McNeil. Second's tough when you get down this list. It's streaky. It's like, I think Dom Smith could really surprise people and be in that top three this year. If he continues to trend the way that we think he can. My only concerns with Dom again is how much playing time is he actually going to get versus the other guys where it's like, Lindor's playing every day. Like he's only going to have a couple games where you actually see him not starting. But Dom is a guy that I don't know. But assuming he plays basically a full season, I could have Dom in that top three. So what's your stance on it?
Yeah, I think Lindor is going to be in their top three. I think it's going to be the order will be McNeil, Lindor, Conforto.
Okay.
That's my three. I think McNeil's destined to be leading the team in batting average. I feel like he's the best natural hitter in terms of base hits, getting on base, spreading the field. When he's hot, it's crazy the amount of hits that he gets. And I think Lindor, he has a lot to prove. Just because he secured the bag for his life, he still is humble. His dad talked to him saying like, yep, this money is awesome, but you still got to do work. And he knows that. And he's humbled and he wants to prove that the best is yet to come. I think Lindor is going to get on base and probably have one of his best seasons at the plate in terms of batting average. And then Conforto right behind him, especially because it's a contract year for him with no extension in the works. He has to step up. The problem with Conforto in his career so far with the Mets is consistency. Sometimes he has a 15-game stretch where he is insane, red hot, multi-hit games on a crazy hitting streak. And then all of a sudden he gets into a slump and he just can't get a hit for his life. So if you can find that medium and be consistent throughout the season, I can easily see him batting 290 plus minimum. So that's my third guy. I think Pete's going to have a batting average around, I think 275 plus would be a very good thing.
That would be beyond good, man.
Yeah, 270 would be more realistic. I think, we can't expect him to be batting anything more than 275, right? Like Pete.
No, I'm probably picking him. Honestly, if Pete bats 250 plus, I'll be happy. I think 259. I don't know why that number just stood out to me, so I'll go with that. As of now, we'll see if that changes. Again, I hope I'm wrong. If he hits, a quarter to 300 in that sense, by God, that's insane. But that's one of those things where he needs to prove it because he hasn't proven it with the average yet early in his career.
So I think we all know the answer of who's going to lead the team in lowest ERA.
Obviously, it's going to be Daniel Zamora.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
so do you expect Marcus Stroman to be the best pitcher on this team besides Jacob deGrom? What are your expectations from Stroman, and what do you think his ERA should be in terms of if he would be considered getting an extension by the Mets?
As much as I hope so, I don't think Stroman will be the second best on this club throughout the entire year. And once it's all wrapped up, I think this will be a monster year for Stroman for sure. But he still needs to prove more to me that the consistency will be there. And when you look at his stuff right now, yeah, it's nasty, but I want to know how deep can this guy actually go into games. That's been probably my biggest gripe with him since watching him, not just as a Met, but during his time with the Jays. Other than early in his career, if Stroh can give you consistent outings pushing 7 innings, that's fantastic. But what have we seen up to this point in this limited sample size? It's been around, 5 innings or so. And a guy at his age, I would like to see more out of him than that. So that's probably the biggest thing. If Stroh can get on average 6.5, 7 innings, book it. That's a big effing deal. But if he's looming more around, 5 innings, 5.5, then I'm not loving his chances of being the second best pitcher in this rotation, but he has all the potential. He has everyone around him supporting him to be that guy. Guys to consider though are obviously basically everyone else in this rotation outside of Peterson. I think we could agree right now, and Lucchesi. But I'm talking about when healthy guys are here. Carrasco has the potential to be their second best pitcher. I honestly think though a guy that will surprise plenty of people once he's back is Thor. I think Thor has the biggest potential to be the second best this year. It'll be limited too, so you got to take that into account. He's coming off Tommy John, but less innings on his arm as it is. As long as he's fully healthy and doesn't get rattled from the go, I mean, he still has the nastiest stuff in my opinion. Outside deGrom, it's them two and then everyone else.
Yeah, I really hope Syndergaard can come back and be great. When it comes to a Syndergaard extension, would you wait because we saw a report that the Mets front office contacted Syndergaard about contract extensions.
And not Stroman, just Thor. So
yeah,
keep that in mind.
So would you want them to extend Syndergaard before he even steps on the mound if it's a cheap long-term deal? Or do you want to wait to see what he's got on the mound? Because he's definitely coming off of Tommy John, which is one of the most important surgeries for a pitcher to have. It's a good thing that he's getting it now. Jacob deGrom had Tommy John's earlier in his career. And a lot of players get it. So, and a lot of players post Tommy Johns can still dominate Jacob deGrom. So what would you do if you're the Mets? Would you want to wait it out and see if you want to extend Syndergaard after the season? Or would you get into negotiations in April and see if we can lock him up for like another 3 to 4 years.
If you can lock him up now, great. But like anything else, there's risks to that, especially with him coming out. Granted, in my personal opinion, I think he's going to bounce back and has the potential. Not saying it will happen, but he has the potential to be a better pitcher than even what he once was for the most part coming off Tommy John. It happens so many times with guys that get the surgery. Basically, if you don't get Tommy John at this point in your career, it's kind of weird. It's so common nowadays. So there's risk if the Mets end up committing to him. But he also puts himself at risk too, should he say not be interested in an extension right now. If he wants to kind of bet on himself and see how he does. If he feels confident, thinks he's going to bounce back better than ever off the surgery, then, that might go into it. But I think, honestly, I do think that Thor will not be extended this season. I think it'll happen after the season. And that is either going to be a great thing or a negative thing. And it's going to be the case for both of them. If Thor has a fantastic year, Mets have a deep run, whatever it's going to be, he's going to get the bag. And the guy to look at a contract structure right now is Lance McCullers for the Astros, because he just got a 5-year, $80 million deal or so, which is a very strong contract, when in reality, Thor career-wise has far better numbers than McCullers when you look at their advanced numbers too. So he's deserving of at least that, probably more. Realistically, Thor's probably going to look for a Zach Wheeler contract. That is my guess. Unless they sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal for him to get like healthy and everything, I think 5 years, 1 to 110 is not out of the realm of possibility for Thor whatsoever. So I think that very well be the case. I think they'll handle it like Wheeler, but the difference is they'll actually lock him up and don't let him walk like Wheeler.
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting to see when it comes to the other extensions with Stroman, Conforto, and Syndergaard. I don't think we're going to be able to extend all 3 of them, but we'll see what they do. So what are your expectations for deGrom? Obviously, we're expecting nothing but brilliance, but if you had to put money on his ERA, what would it be? And do you think he's going to win the Cy Young this year?
One, I do think he's going to win Cy Young. That's the one thing I will kind of always say biasly until he tells me otherwise, until he's like, you know what? I'm not Cy Young caliber anymore. He's 100% Cy Young caliber this year. Just look at the guy. We know that damn well. Yeah, I think deGrom, if deGrom can pitch to really, I think a realistic ERA for him this season with how tough the division is going to be, I think 2.3 or lower is not all that outlandish. If he can somehow
just brilliant
get a sub-2 ERA out of him again, I'm not expecting, $1.75 like his first Cy Young year. I don't see that happening. But if you can get him to a 2 or lower, then yeah, he has all the potential. And then at that point, what's going to matter most then is wins to an extent, because they still care about wins, even though he's won and without them. They still help, especially if you're going up against guys with basically the same ERA, which we could see with some guys this year, and strikeouts. He's going to be throwing that heater big time. He's going to get so many guys whiffing. So the Ks and the ERA will be the biggest factor into his success this year. So those are the ones that we have to look out for. But yeah, I do think deGrom is still the guy to beat Cy Young. What's your thoughts?
So, yeah, I think that he is the favorite for Cy Young again. I think last year was a little fluke season because it was shortened and Bauer got it, cool. But deGrom was still finalist, and he wasn't even, he had some games where he had a lot of hiccups. I feel like he had a total of 12 starts, 13 starts, and he had like 2 games that were on deGrom-like, and the rest of them were brilliant.
Yeah, his last start of the season, if my memory isn't mistaken, he gave up a couple of runs, and that basically was like, damn, all right, he's not winning it. I doubt it at this point. So
yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm expecting nothing but brilliance from deGrom. His spring has been ridiculous. What does he pitch? 13 innings and gave up 1 run. Insane. I just don't understand how he gets better and better. His velocity is upticked, his movement, his ball placement, his mentality, everything about deGrom is brilliant. And he knows that he is that great. And he has he puts goals in front of himself to make the Hall of Fame. He wants to go for the Cy Young. He understands he's that good. So expect nothing but brilliance from our guy, Jake. So what about the bullpen? What do you think? Who is going to be the ace of the bullpen? Lugo's out, so we can't really expect him. At least in the earlier beginning of the season, obviously. So is it going to be Trevor May that's going to step up in that role? Are we going to get an Edwin Diaz? Like, I feel like every season we're like, when are we going to see the Mariners version of him? So what are your expectations for the bullpen, really? And who do you think is going to step up and be a surprise of being, like, really good?
I don't really think it should come all that as a surprise if Edwin Diaz has a monster year. We know the stuff he has. we're just still so tainted by 2019. If we can try to push that aside and realize that the 2020 numbers and everything else wasn't a fluke, then yeah, I think Diaz has the utmost potential. But the most surprising guy that people need to make sure they're paying attention to is Miguel Castro. He is my pick this year in the bullpen to be the biggest surprise, where he already was solidified. It's not like a rookie like a McWilliams or something, right? Where, that's an obvious surprise if they do anything productive. But Castro has been in the league for a bit, who's been pitching right around a 4 ERA or so. Wasn't fantastic when he first got traded to the Mets last year at the deadline, but this guy has all the tools and he's put it together. That was evident in spring. I think that they're doing a great job with him. So yeah, Miguel Castro is my pick to be the biggest surprise and basically be the next best shutdown guy the Mets have in this bullpen outside of Diaz.
I like that pick. I forgot about Castro. I liked him when we traded for him last year. And I think Trevor May has a good opportunity as well to step in to be that long relief guy or the middle relief guy, or coming in the 8th, coming in the 5th. Like, he's very versatile. He's not just a guy that only has one role. He said that his role over where he's coming from, he said that he has to be ready for everything. He can even close a game. Like, say Edwin Diaz goes back to back and he's not available to close the game. I think Trevor May has the ability to close games at times. So we're going to see that from him. We'll see what type of familia we'll get, because that's always up in the air. But this bullpen, I think, is probably, I would say, the biggest concern just for the Mets. Not saying it's a terrible bullpen, but if you put in consideration, compare it to our starting rotation and compare it to the lineup, I think the bullpen is what's going to make or break the season. Because yeah, exactly. And it scares me because, especially when it comes to Jacob deGrom not getting those W's, please just score runs and shut them down in the bullpen when deGrom's on the mound. I don't know why it's so hard to do.
Why is this so difficult? I can go out and do this myself, right? Who needs these guys?
It just frustrates me because they don't do it on the day deGrom pitches, and the next day we have like an 8-run game and the bullpen gives up 0 runs. Like, that's what frustrates me.
I do think that this year look, it changed in 2020. Let's not forget that deGrom had more run support last year than like he ever did in his career, but it just got tainted because the bullpen could not help him out, nor could the remainder of that rotation.
The other.
Yeah. So regardless, I think we're finally going to see a balanced Mets club where they can put up the runs with deGrom. Do I think deGrom's going to win every start he has this year? Hell no. No, it's impossible, right? But deGrom actually has the potential to push upwards to 20 wins this year. And I think that's the most enticing thing about this all. No one deserves it more than him in this club. There's not one player that I look at that deserves the credit outside of being like actual more, not just individual statistics, but just from a team standpoint, actually getting what he gives to the team. Let's actually see it start to come back to him. It's been long overdue. This is the year where it finally starts that with this new regime, with Lindor and everybody. So that is definitely all I can really say about deGrom. And speaking of deGrom, I want to mention too so the Mets, deGrom is starting on Monday, right? So then he will probably be starting. The next game might be the game you're going to, Richie, which is going to be the 11th. In April, the second game, that Saturday game against the Marlins.
I think it's the 10th.
Yeah, so that's what the assumption that they, when they have that off day next Friday, that they don't mess anything up, that they keep him as if it would be like a normal 5th day, so he's starting again. But him on Monday, he's having a good matchup. And as excited as I was to see us face off against Mad Max, because he's so entertaining, you love to hate him for the Nationals, the Mets go from facing the rotation to start the year of Max Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin to now it's going to be Matt Moore on Monday, which is one of the 2 games I'm going to, who pitched in Japan last year and posted a roughly 6 ERA. He was at a 5.58, I believe. Did not have a good spring either. And then the second game, Stroman, he's facing off against, why am I blinking off the top of my head? It's another Phillies pitcher who really is not necessarily stellar, and I'm not trying to jinx anything. I'm absolutely not.
They're going up against the back end of their rotation.
Correct. It's Chase Anderson then. And Anderson has had some good seasons in the league, but he's been up and down. I remember him most with the Brewers, but definitely not like your most ideal guy. Like, I'm taking Stroman any day of the week over him on average, right? And then that series finale, which I'll be at on Wednesday, that'll be Peterson, and that's the only game that will probably be a decently tough for the Mets because I didn't do the math, but odds are Aaron Nola is probably starting that game. So yeah, that series finale will be big. But up to that point, the Mets could do an insane amount of damage those first 2 games. The bats should be flying. They're facing a rotation that is not on the same level as theirs.
Exactly. So that segues perfectly into the season preview because it's unfortunate that we still got to preview this damn season because it was so unfortunate yesterday watching all these games unfold, seeing all beautiful baseball, and I'm just like, wow, the Mets aren't playing. But luckily, we saw the Yankees lose, we saw the Dodgers lose, we saw the Braves lose. So maybe it was a positive. So the preview of this season really is the expectations is you got to make the playoffs. Whether you win the division or make the wild card, you got to get in the playoffs. If they don't make it, it's a big disappointment. And listen, we haven't made the playoffs since 2016. A lot of people,
which doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but yeah, it was like 5 years ago. Like, what the hell? Like,
we have all these playoff aspirations. We're being ranked in the top 10 in Major League Baseball by every single analysis. People are expecting the Mets to have a big year. And if they fall short of the playoffs, that will be really disappointing. And I'm not expecting them to do that, but it's like a different feeling where we're getting hyped up and we have all the talent on paper and we need to put it together. And I think that it's going to be a really long season. I think that we need to be not fall apart in June. Like, I feel like that's always the month that we always struggle in. I think that April is going to really propel us because I want to start the season off hot. I'm not, remember when we started the season like crazy? What was that? Was that
were we like 11 or 12-0? And then they absolutely shit the bed after that. It was like the best.
We all just, shit the bed in June.
It was so bad. Yeah, the biggest hurdle for the Mets to get over this year, outside of all the normal factors, is being consistent, not being a second half team, not being a first half team. You need to be an all season long team. All right. Like, look, you're going to have your highs, you're going to have your lows. We're going to be talking weeks where we're royally pissed off because the Mets just completely underperformed. Right. And we're going to have plenty of weeks where we're jumping for joy because say they swept the entire week. Like, those things will inevitably happen. But what will matters most for them is that they get off to a hot start, but they just stay consistent. When they get in their slumps, they don't have a slump of, by God, 10 straight games. Okay, maybe they have a slump where they get swept a series here and there. Like, okay, that will probably happen, right? We're baseball fans. We expect these things. But as long as they don't drag out a slump from being something far more worse than that, that is what is going to lead to their most success this year. So fingers crossed. Yeah. And are there any other main factors that really stand out to you other than what we pointed out?
Yeah, I think the one, if we want to pick out one time of the season where they need to be the most hot, is August and September, because I feel like that is so important in baseball in particular, being hot going into the playoffs.
Yes.
Obviously, we're hoping that we're in the playoffs, but say we struggle earlier on in the season, say we have a really good April, and then May we kind of slow down, and June we're not that great, and then all of a sudden trade deadline comes, maybe we can make a move, and we're just floating around 500, and then in July we start really going on win streaks, and then August, September is when we take it to another level, and we just start going on crazy win streaks. That is the best case scenario, I think. That's what would make me the most comfortable, because again, going into the playoffs hot, I think doesn't, like, baseball is the one sport where that matters the most, because it's all a game of being on, being in a rhythm. If you're in a slump, you're not there mentally. I feel like baseball is the most mentally tough game there is. And man, it's just getting me excited. Let's just preview this couple weeks, like you said. So
sure.
deGrom, luckily I'll be seeing deGrom, his home opener. It won't be the home opener of the Mets. Walker will be on the mound for the home opener, but his first game at Citi Field will be April 10th. And then
fingers crossed that's the case.
That's hopefully that's the case. And then Tyler and I will be going to, you're going to the entire series. Is that against the Phillies again?
Yeah. It's gonna be like all Phillies. That's what I'm used to, though. So
4-game series. He'll be going to the first 2 games. I'll be going with him to the next 2 games. That's going to be fun. Man, I don't know, man. I'm just excited to watch this Mets team. So what really gives you the most excitement when it comes to the Mets? Like, when you're looking forward to opening day and just the entire month of April of baseball, or just the entirety of the season, what are you looking forward to the most with this team? Like, in seeing, like, is it the Lindor? What can he do with his contract? Seeing him being the superstar? Is it deGrom's brilliance? Is it Pete Alonso potentially breaking out, becoming a stud? Is it Conforto being on a contract year, seeing what he's going to do? Or is it a very underrated player off the bench that you're excited for? Is it Nimmo being the leadoff? I mean, there's so many players on this team that we can talk about, and that's what's so awesome.
Yeah.
And shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate you guys tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Make sure to smash that like button if you haven't. Help us get to 100 likes if we haven't hit already, guys. Make sure to smash those buttons. Subscribe to WardyNYM Mets Media. He's going to be doing so much great content during the season. It's going to be a lot. Trust me. He hasn't even gotten a chance yet because we're waiting for the season. Now it's here. He's going to be doing plenty. I'm sure he's going to be doing game recaps, probably some live streams here or there, and we'll be doing some vlogs at games this year too. So a lot of great stuff here at Mets Media. Make sure to subscribe to the man if you haven't already, guys.
Appreciate that as always, man.
Yeah, but to basically answer what you were saying, obviously there's so many individual players I'm excited for. It starts with Lindor because it's like, how can you not? But I think what I'm most excited for this year, more than any other year, is seeing this team gelled. When we look at the best teams in the league, like the LA Dodgers, more often than not, they are high flying, or it's not like you just have one guy standing out. The entire lineup is hitting, right? And the entire lineup is producing defensively too. I'm most excited about this Mets club actually having everyone in sync at the same time. I feel like since I became a Mets fan, I've never witnessed that. It's been one or the other, right? It's been either you have the pitching, but you don't have the hitting, or it's now vice versa from 2020. You had the hitting, but you did not have the pitching. And, to see them all in sync is what we have all hoped for. This is all barring injuries and inevitable things that happen. But if we can just see this lineup, this batting lineup, 1 through 9, all hit outside of the pitcher, like that will probably be the best feeling in the world to me. Because I've never seen it. I've never seen it consistent enough where I was like, wow, okay. It wasn't like a fluke where the Mets got lucky and just blew up this team one game, right? It's like, okay, they dominated the entire series. Like, holy shit. And McNeil in the 6th spot, it just obliterate everyone still. Like, it doesn't matter where he is. I know that slumps are going to happen. You're going to have a lineup that's majorly hot, and then you're going to have one of your top guys that's cold. It naturally happens. I'm prepared for that in this full season, but seeing them consistently together batting-wise is what I am personally most looking forward to. So what's yours?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. Like you said, everybody being collectively together. I'm interested in seeing the defense because I feel like that was the most problematic part of the Mets memory. I'm excited for the middle infield of Lindor and McNeil. I think that's going to be special. I think Nimmo is going to take a big step defensively in center field. I'm very worried about Dom Smith on the left, definitely. And I also want to see what Pete Alonso can do at first base because he always says he wants to become a Gold Glover, and he needs to have those goals in order to get there. I want to see him take that step. Becoming a really good defensive first baseman is not easy. That's one of the most difficult defensively positions. Honestly, a very undervalued defensive position, in my opinion. And I'm just excited to see what this defense can do. I feel like we have awesome defensive pitchers with deGrom and Stroman. And I'm also interested to see what McCann can do behind the plate defensively because we got him for a defensive-minded catcher. Is he going to be able to throw people out? Because that's something that this Mets team has struggled with. We've always been struggling of throwing people out when they're trying to steal bases, especially with Syndergaard on the mound. But that's definitely players I'm looking out for. How could we get back to the fundamental roots of baseball and being a defensive-minded team? Because that's not who we are. We're more of an offensive powerhouse hitting team. But now with the addition of Francisco Lindor being a defensive wizard at short and McNeil being in his natural position at second for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to see what we can do defensively. So that's really what I'm looking forward to the most. Because I feel like that's been such a lost art of the Mets in recent years.
I tend to agree with you. And I think it's been just a lost art in the game of baseball itself. We always see defensive highlights, but all that matters at the end of the day is home runs. That's why they juice these balls, right? They feel that baseball is a slow sport. It's really hard to get certain people in. Normally, you need something exciting. So the most exciting thing naturally for a casual fan is going to be see a big bomb hit, especially if it's like, say, a bases clearing, you get yourself a grand salami, whatever it's going to be. But defense is so important. It is an absolute art. When you see a guys get like a triple play down and like through a diving catch, that is just as good as a hit for me, like if not more. So you're right. Defense is something that the Mets have lacked for years now. We can talk, not to bring things down, but 2015, one of the biggest gripes of that club was defense, right? So now you're going to have a team that's going to be destined for greatness sooner than later, but they should have a competent of enough defense, but this will be a big test for them. They know a lot of the guys in the lineup know that to an extent, their careers with the Mets are on the line should they not perform to at least an average capability on defense.
Facts. I agree, man. So before we end the stream today, we're going to open this up to a Mets Q&A. You guys in the chat, feel free to ask us any questions.
Ask away.
We'll get to any questions you guys have. If you guys did not smash that thumbs up button, please make sure you do so. Really appreciate that. Going live on this channel way more often. I'll be live with Wardy on his channel next week at some point, and I'll be recapping almost every game. It's going to be interesting to see what I do because now I got the Knicks and Mets playing at the same time. I'm going to have like both on one on my computer, one on my monitor or something. I got to watch both of them at the same time. That's going to be really fun. Doing that. So
yeah, I started doing that now, like where you're just watching like multiple things at once.
And then recap videos after. Say the Knicks and Mets win both games. I gotta record a recap for the Knicks, record a recap for the Mets, upload them both. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's a challenge. It is fun though when you do all that. You're like, damn, like that was cool.
Yeah. All right. So NYR Mike says, will Edwin Diaz have a good year as the closer? What do you think, Wardy?
I think so. I think the main thing for him is the pressure isn't on him nearly as much as it was the past 2 years. He doesn't have to worry about basically, let me put it this way. He had such a long leash in 2019 where it only hurt him because they were just throwing him back out, to the Sharks and not being able to handle anything, not work on his stuff properly. This year will be different. There won't be nearly as long of a leash on him. They will work with him, but they know he knows that he's going into the season more confident than ever before. So I do believe Diaz will have a good year. Is good a sub 2 ERA or a sub 3 ERA or that only he will tell. But if it's anything around that range, I think that's a good year for Diaz. If you get Diaz 3 or lower, obviously you want to be more ideal. Talking the 2 ranges at least or lower because he's a closer at the end of the day. If he's giving up runs, normally it's a bad thing because you're blowing a save or you end up losing the game. So
how many saves does he have?
How many saves? I feel comfortable giving Diaz at least 40 saves on the year, pushing 45.
That's a good year.
Yeah.
Elijah asked, do you think Stroman can compete for the Cy Young this year? This is a good question. I would say no. Would I love for him to be? Yes. Does he have potential to be top 10, top 15 pitchers in the league? Yes. I think the Cy Young is pushing it because, listen, Cy Young, I don't think we understand how hard it is to get a Cy Young award. Like what Jacob deGrom had to do statistically to get those back-to-back Cy Youngs is incredible. 1.7 ERA and then a sub 2.3, leading the league in strikeouts. I don't think Stroman is a Cy Young potential pitcher at all. I think we'll be happy if we can get a sub 3.5 ERA from him. I think that's a positive for Stroman. If he can get a sub 3, that would be ridiculous. But what would you say? Do you think that we should expect him to be a Cy Young caliber pitcher this year, or is that
no? That shouldn't be an expectation. That should be a plus if that comes to fruition, because the guy needs to pitch innings. That's the biggest thing. You're not going to get anywhere in the Cy Young race if you don't have a lot of innings on your arm, and while also simultaneously having one of the better ERAs in all baseball, if not the best. Those are heaviest factors. Strikeouts are key as well. This is a guy that is not a strikeout king as he is a ground out king. So, look, it's all up to him at the end of the day. We'll all be excited and ecstatic if he does become a Cy Young caliber pitcher, at least for some parts of the year. But to say that he will be a candidate by the year's end, I think you would really be pushing things right now.
Once Thor and Cookie come back, what's going to happen with Peterson if Walker does a great job? Lucchese in the pen. Yeah, this is a good thing. As we know, Cookie's out. Rojas said he's progressing very well, but he's still week to week. And we're expecting Thor to come back sometime in June, July range, maybe May, but that's pushing it. And say the rotation would be deGrom, no order, deGrom, Stroman, Cookie, Thor, Walker. Yeah, I mean, that leaves Peterson out. So what do we do with Peterson? Is he going to go into the pen? Is he going to get sent down? I think it really factors into what type of Peterson we're getting because he's going to be the third pitcher right now. He's our third guy. He's in front of Walker, which is interesting.
Because they want to mix up the lefties. That's why they did it.
Yeah, for sure. So what are your thoughts on what do you think will happen to Peterson? Say Walker does a great job. He solidifies his spot in the rotation. And Cookie and Thor come back around the same time. What happens with Peterson?
I think that Peterson, they're going to get creative with him. Something tells me they're going to toy with a 6-man rotation this year, which is not something I felt nearly as comfortable saying. And Matthew, who's a member and subscriber on my channel, as a modder, has been preaching this for a while. And it feels more and more likely we can see that, because if Peterson's rolling and then you have everyone healthy, it's like, why would you take him out? Because a lefty always helps your rotation. When you're all righties, it's normally it's just not a good look. You normally want to have at least some diversity in there. The more different types of arms you have in a rotation, let alone a pen, the better. That's what the Mets kind of did this offseason with all these different kind of bullpen guys, getting some lefty side armors in there and just having lefties in general. So I really do believe that we're going to see Peterson as either a 6 starter at times. We're going to see him maybe split a 6 spot with Lucchesi or something. I think we could maybe see him in the pen at some points this year. It's going to be interesting, but I do think that there will not be nearly as much certainty with how your rotation is looking every week than maybe what we initially expected. I really think they're going to be creative this year.
What season and results would make you feel that this year was successful? Playoffs, winning record, World Series? What's up, Eric? Good question.
What's up, Eric?
Earlier. I think that we need to make the playoffs. We can't just expect to win the division, because this is one of the best divisions in baseball. That's why it's like, if we don't win the division, I won't be too upset, but we need to get that wild card spot. So I think a successful year, he's making the playoffs and winning series, getting to the NLDS minimum, because if we make the wild card, we need to get in that game, and then getting to the championship series. We just need to show that we are a National League powerhouse. We're right behind the Dodgers and the Braves and the Padres and all these teams that are on the come up, and all these teams that look like they're going to be good. And we are talked up as one of the best teams in the NL. So I think this season, a success would be living up to the expectations and exceeding them. I think if we become anything less than our expectations and we don't make the playoffs, obviously that's disappointing, but we need to get in the playoffs and win playoff games. That's a successful season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's important for them, one, to make playoffs. If you don't make playoffs, that's a huge red flag. Unless everything goes wrong and worst case scenario, everyone gets hurt, right, and they don't make it. Okay. I really don't even think it's an excuse to say that if they just missed playoffs because they were in a huge battle with other wildcard teams. No, the Mets should be a playoff team this year. And I almost feel to an extent that they should win a series, whether that's a wildcard game, 1-game series, or if that's a 5-game series in the NLDS. I think that's really important too. But again, it's the first year with this new regime and this new club, and it's a lot going on at once. It's a lot to kind of figure out in a short period of time. So playoffs, in my opinion, is the biggest key. I'm not going to go the lengths of saying that they absolutely need to win a series, but I'm definitely leaning more towards that than I am not.
Word. So there's breaking news in the MLB. Apparently the All-Star game is moved.
Oh, yes, I think I saw that. Yep.
It's not going to be in Atlanta. So what's the news?
MLB, I think MLB posted it. That's interesting though. I wonder who what's going to happen here. Hold on, I'm going to look up real quick. So the All-Star game, that's going to be fun, no less. Hopefully it actually happens this year. Yeah, okay. According to Anthony DeComo, Major League Baseball is moving the 2021 All-Star game and draft out of Atlanta. So, and draft, because the draft was supposed to be there too. Major League Baseball fundamentally supports voting rights for all Americans and opposing restrictions to the ballot box, Commissioner Rob Manfred said in a statement. So it's because of political reasons why this is moved. That's what's happening. So at least it kind of feels that way. I mean, everyone has their own opinions, but it's regarding voting, which is obviously not regarding baseball. It's regarding just in general. So everyone's entitled to have their own stance on that. But yeah, it definitely seems that it's an interesting reasoning, whether you're for or against it. But it looks like that's happening. Maybe I'm trying to see the reasoning as to why that's happening. Because again, I haven't been following what's been going on voting wise in Georgia. My assumption is that there was restrictions given to some type of individual. Again, I honestly don't know. I haven't done my homework on this. Yeah. So regardless though, that's the reasoning. So it's going to be moved to a different state. Be absolutely awesome if it was in Queens again. Highly doubt it, but man, that'd be nuts. Yeah. All I can say is, if it's anywhere rather close, shit, sign me up. We're going. Like we're definitely going. I don't care how we're gonna go. We're going. So
this is a good question from Blake. Who is the X factor for the Mets? My X factor is Edwin Diaz. I think if Edwin Diaz can get to a 100% elite level where we are up in the ninth inning and he can come in and just be a guy that can shut down games, because without a closer, we're not winning games. I mean, that's my X factor. If we can get an Edwin Diaz that can push for 50 plus saves and be the guy that we need him to be all season, you can pick so many different X factors for this team, but that's just one that comes to mind for me. So what are one that comes to mind for you that's not Diaz?
That's not Diaz. That's a great question. Not Diaz though. And just, are we seeing X factors in like making or breaking the season?
Yeah, like if they have a really good season, it's going to benefit the Mets in the biggest way possible.
Okay.
That some people are underrating.
That some people are underrating. Okay.
Why would you pick Diaz as well?
I honestly would. Just because of obviously how important it is to get that closer role. But if I wasn't choosing him and I was picking one other individual player, honestly, I think in the sense of more so for himself than the team, but JD Davis. I think JD Davis could be a major X factor in the sense of if he performs average defensively and has a solid year with the bat, that'll be monster for the Mets. But if he doesn't, then that's going to hurt them. And two, it's going to put the Mets in a situation where they're kind of in more of a desperate need to address position versus then just doing it for the sake of just simply wanting to upgrade. If JD just does terrible defensively or whatever, where it's drastically hurting this club, then they kind of have to act fast, because they're not going to give much more of a leash to him. So I think JD Davis is a big X factor, more so with his own fate than necessarily the club, but they all factor in at the end of the day. So I'll pick him. Yeah,
that's a good pick. I really do think so. I think Nimmo is another one just because he's going to be the leadoff guy. And if you want to take that step defensively, that's going to be huge for us. I don't think you guys understand the value of defense in center field. So he's another X factor. You can think of Pete Alonso at the plate. Which Pete are we getting? If we're getting a rookie Pete, that is going to help this team so much. You don't even understand. But yeah, there's a lot of X factors you can come up with. But I think the number one guy is Edwin Diaz, because
I agree with you,
especially since he's been such up and down. He had a really good season last year. We look at 2019 as a crazy, terrible season. And if he can step up big time, then we are in a good hands. And I think any big pitcher in the bullpen is an X factor, because that's the one position that we look at and we're not 100% confident saying like that's an elite bullpen.
Yeah.
I think we have an elite lineup. I think we have a borderline elite pitching rotation when everyone gets healthy. But that bullpen has potential to be great, but it's not, 100%.
You need guys that really step up and kind of have career years, like that's to an extent. I mean, especially with the younger guys. Robert Gazelman, I don't think is lasting in this bullpen. I hope he proves me wrong, but I just don't think he is. Jacob Barnes is still a wild card, depending on how they use him, who just cracked the bullpen. Betances, what are you getting out of Betances, right? Familia, what are you getting out of these guys? So in the scenarios where they don't thrive and say you don't make a trade or a last minute signing, because there are still some good relievers out there in free agency, people tend to forget that. Shane Green, Jeremy Jeffress, give them a call. I know where you're not. But Drew Smith, Sam McWilliams, these guys could very well have a decent to significant impact with the Mets this year. And in my mind, those are really the ones to look out for more should things kind of go awry fairly quick with the bullpen.
So I just thought of a question that we can discuss is What's one player that's the most underrated player on the Mets that not a lot of people are talking about? I think JD Davis is a good one for being an X factor, but somebody that is going totally swept under the rug, no one's talking about, and has potential to have a really good season. Does anybody come to mind for you?
Yeah, a couple people come to mind, honestly. James McCann, I've always felt that way about him. But when I'm thinking about this entire lineup construction, and I'm not going to include the bench because, we'll just strictly talk about starters right now, but underrated, I feel like to an extent Dom is definitely there. I really do. Just because it's easy to overlook a little bit of a short 2020 season and how much are you going to get out of him in that aspect. So I think I'm going to pick two guys. I'm going to pick Dom Smith and Carlos Carrasco. Cookie, in my mind, no one knows because like we haven't seen him yet, right? We didn't even see him pitch a spring training game. And today, I will say positive news, he's actually healing up quicker than expected. So he's still under week to week according to Rojas, but he can be back basically anytime that he's ready. So stay tuned for that. He's ahead of schedule, which is awesome. But yeah, I really think Dom and Cookie's the main one. People tend to forget that Cookie Carrasco, fully healthy, can be a damn good pitcher in this rotation. Can be one of the better ones in all the NL. So yeah, those are kind of my two picks. I know you said one, but I'm cheating.
Yeah, I'm going to go with McCann. I know you mentioned him first, but I think he has a chance to show up and say, I am the future catcher. I'm not future, but the catcher here for the next 4 years, and you guys are going to love me. We've been dealing with Wilson Ramos for the past years, and it was a nightmare defensively for Ramos. He would show up sometimes as the Buffalo and, hit those opposite fields home runs. But
offensively, his first year was awesome. He had like the longest hitting streak in Mets history. It was close to. He went over 20 games. He was an animal. He would poke it out of right field like it's nothing, or he'll pull that baby for a home run. Like he was awesome, which made up for his defensive woes. But 2020 was evident that this guy's knees are just shot.
Yeah, so I think McCann taking that step and showing why we gave him a $40 million contract over 4 years. You're a defensive-minded guy. Can you help out the pitchers? Can you be the guy that's going to calm down the young guys like Peterson if he's struggling, being behind the plate? Like I said earlier, can you throw people out at second? And can you be a solid guy in the lineup? He's going to be batting probably 7 or 8 throughout the season, unless he starts getting hot or getting injuries. We got to move him up to 6 or something like that. I don't see that happening. But that's the next fact. That's a very underrated player that I feel like Mets fans are going to look at, and hopefully we can get a big breakout season from him. Because this is Mets debut. Obviously, we don't know what to expect, but there's a lot of underrated players. I mean, Miguel Castro is another player that you mentioned earlier, who I think a lot of people are underrating. Brandon Nimmo, Dom Smith's a great one. There's so many players that you can come up with, and Conforto's being thrown under the rug as well. In my opinion, no one's talking about him, especially McNeil. There's so many names on this team, and it just gets me so pumped up for this season, man. Wow.
I feel like it's been easy for everyone to like forget about the damn lineup because it's been a Lindor and Alonso show like all spring and into this point. Like Lindor for more reasons than one, but Alonso because he never slowed down. Like he was hot the entire time. So yeah, it's easy to forget these guys for a second when there's not a whole lot going on or it's not even the season yet, but on paper, the Mets have the potential to be the deadliest team offensively in the league. And that's saying a lot when you're talking about the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, the Yankees. Like, there's so many great teams. Do I think the Mets will be the best offensively? They'll have to prove it. I'm not going to bet the house that they won't. They have amazing teams right around them, if not better. But, yeah, this lineup is easily one of the best in baseball, if not the best on paper, offensively speaking. So, yeah, just watch out, MLB. That's all I can say. Don't sleep on the Mets, man. That offense is going to show. It won't show every night. We're going to get pissed off. We're probably going to attend games where they don't show up, and it's going to really piss us off. But that's part of baseball.
They spend a lot of money. They don't show up. We're like, come on, what's going on? But, man, I'm excited. Mets will be first pitch Monday night, 7 o'clock.
I'll be there.
Yeah,
Wardy will be vlogging.
Wardy will be there like a beast, and expect a lot of content here. We're going to wrap up the stream now. If you guys want to send us any other questions, feel free to do so. But we had a long stream today. We got into everything regarding the Lindor contract extension, which is so amazing. Mets fans should be so happy that we locked up a superstar for a decade because we haven't done this ever. I mean, it's the biggest contract we've ever gave out in history, obviously.
Yeah, and by far. Like it went right through David Wright's contract like it was nothing.
Exactly. And Steve Cohen is putting his money where his mouth is. He understood that he needed to get this done because he would not be looked at any different in any other previous Mets ownership like the Wilpons. So be thankful that we have a new owner in the building. It's a new regime. It's a new era in Mets baseball with Francisco Lindor locked up. Expect a lot of crazy contracts in the future. Like, just because we gave out this contract does not mean we're going to be cheap. Look at what the Dodgers and the Yankees, they give out these contracts like it's nothing, and we're becoming that. We have the richest owner in the sport by a long slide, $9 billion. Like, that's how crazy it is. And, man, I'm excited. The Mets season is officially beginning. Should have started yesterday, but let's not harp on the past and just look forward to the future. You have anything else to say, Wardy, before we end the stream?
No, I just like you. I'm pumped. I'm so excited. This week's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to vlog the couple games I'm going to and get those videos out for you guys. And I can't wait to recap with you later in the week for our Mets talk and really see how did the Mets do this upcoming week, right? So actually, before we go, let me give you one last prediction. So the Mets have this week, they are going to be playing, if you want to count the weekend, let's just count until maybe we'll talk next. So we'll probably talk next Friday. Up until that point, they're going to play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So they got 4 games that they're going to be playing. What do you think? What's your prediction for this week of games for the Mets until we talk next?
Well, listen, we're going up against a team that we're on the back end of their rotation. So and it's really interesting because I feel like our team is going to be out of rhythm at first. Unfortunately, it's the reality of the situation. They're all preparing their minds and their bodies for Thursday, and now they have to adapt and go Monday, and who knows how that's going to impact deGrom and Stroman and all these pitchers. Say on a 4-game stretch, I think minimum we have to be 2-2. If we go under, if we lose 4, if we go 1-3 in that 4-game stretch, that is obviously extremely concerning. Minimum 2-2, but 3-1 would be phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm picking 3-1 too, as long as this doesn't throw them off too much, and it could. Look, the Mets could go 1-4 this week for all we know. Like, it happens. Hopefully it doesn't. But I like their odds against some of these pitching matchups for sure, and just the lineup that have reigned. So, yeah, I'm picking 3-1. That I feel comfortable saying that. How do they get that loss? I think the most realistic way, just when you're looking at the numbers and the players, is the Wednesday game that I'll be attending, which I hope isn't the case. But if Aaron Nola is on the mound, I've been to plenty of starts where he's had a great game against him in the past. So, he's my main concern for the pitching matchups for this week for the Mets.
Facts. It's going to be interesting, guys. The season begins very soon. It's going to be very, very fun all season. Expect Mets content on my channel and Wardy's channel all season long. We got a lot of cool stuff in store for you guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in to another Mets Talk episode. If you guys did not smash that thumbs up button, please make sure you do so. Greatly appreciate all the support here at Mets Media. And yeah, that does it for this episode. Stay tuned. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets, baby. Subscribe to Richie at Mets Media. Check me out if you have it on my channel. Let's go Mets, baby. I'll talk to you soon.
Let's go, baby. Catch you guys next time.